Hold on for a second. What's up, YouTube family? I would like you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to our video. It would help us get into the algorithms so we can be seen and bring more engaging content to you guys. So like I said, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate you. Welcome to another edition of the Pick and Downs podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zhu and P-Bush. How you fellas doing?
I'm doing well, man. Clinched a nice little first round bye in the home fantasy league. Just glorious. But another tough loss for the Bears this past Sunday, man. Caleb's on the up and up, like I was telling the guys pre-production. But it's going to be interesting to see how they finish out the season, and maybe they can knock some shoes together against NFC North teams. They got to play a lot of them the last third of the season here. So kind of interested to see how the team makes it through this tough first season with Caleb.
I can't relate on locking up on a bye because the fantasy teams are struggling right now. I only got one that's definitive, probably going to be a top two, but the rest, they're fighting for dear life, man. A bunch of 500 mediocre teams. Not excited. Even if I make the playoffs, those teams, no excitement at all. They're like the Chicago Bulls in the playoffs. You make the play-in, you lose in the first round.
Oof.
It's one of those situations. So, and I gotta say, this is the first year I made one of the worst trades in my fantasy career. I traded guys, I believed them. I miss you, Josh Jacobs. I miss you, Puka, man. So you guys do great things for your new team. Do great things because I believed you guys day one. I traded you guys because I was a little desperate trying to make the playoffs. But training your best stats for a quarterback, do not do that. Do not do that.
Yep. Yeah. No. Quarterback in fantasy is something you can kind of fill in and get enough done. You know, I feel like even a 5 to 6 point difference on average per week, you can make that up with quality positional players.
And Garrett Wilson, man.
Okay, well,
anything in the Jets, I'm out right now.
Brees, maybe.
Even Brees. Yeah. I love Brees, the talent. The Jets,
yeah, he's kind of little.
That entire situation is awful.
A mess.
The culture and the vibe of the locker room.
Ownership to the quarterback to the coaches getting fired. It's just not a good situation.
No.
Quarterback's already making motions and talking about, well, this is probably my last year. I might go somewhere else. It's like, man, it looks like you need to retire. Like, it just looks like you need to figure this out and with your team and just go off into the sunset. Because, like you said, part of this is the Jets are the Jets, but also Aaron Rodgers hadn't put up his end of the bargain. So, you know, like you said, Brees is the only one I would touch for a 10-foot pole, but everybody else is, draft or trade for at your own peril. So, but the NFL, you know, this past weekend, it was a lot of good games. One of the games in particular that I would say was heartbreak was the Commanders and Dallas Cowboys game where, you know, if you were watching that, like I kind of got a live look in. Like I didn't watch the whole game, but I got a live look in, and it was like a couple plays before the cherry bomb that was called by Jaden Daniels, and then the unfortunate kicker missed an extra point. So that gave Washington, I think that's their third game they lost in a row. And then on the other side, you saw the Vikings pull out a squeaker next week. But like I've been saying on this podcast, I'm not the biggest believer in Sam Darnold. I think that train's going to end quite soon. So, you know, shout out to people. She kind of brought up the question of like, who do you believe in more right now, the Vikings or the Commanders? And people, you can leave this topic off.
It was a tough one, man, because Commanders, you know, I don't want to make this direct comparison because Jaden did have a really good game in the end, fantasy football-wise. But, you know, the past 3 games or so, he was kind of on the slight decline or just kind of stagnant. And then Caleb was kind of rising, right? We kind of saw the rookie opposition. But when he came into that second half against the Cowboys, who shout out Cooper Rush, man, he was moving the ball pretty well. And the defense was actually doing their job. I think the big caveat you can put on this game is the fact that the Commanders lost Brian Robinson. He tried to come back in, said, I'm not fully there. They pulled him. And then, of course, Eckler comes in, gets a concussion, what looked to me like a pretty bad concussion. So I know we're still, you know, handful of weeks out from the playoffs. I do see the Commanders probably squeaking into the playoffs this year. But I just think that this team is starting to come back to reality a little bit after such a hot start at 7-2. now sitting at 7-5, 2 games back of the Philly Eagles, but still in position to make a wild card run. So on the Vikings side, I thought it was great to see Addison and Hawkinson get involved because it had kind of been the JJ and AJ Aaron Jones show all year. Yep. Obviously, Addison, I think, was out towards the beginning of the year, came back, finally had a monster game against the Bears, which makes sense because Jalen Johnson, corner for the Bears, is one of the best in the league, and he shut down Justin Jefferson. So you got to look at other guys. But TJ Hawkinson getting a connection going with Sam Darnold is huge, and it probably gave Darnold flashbacks of his time having to play with getting to play with George Kittle in San Fran, just realizing how valuable it is to have such a solid tight end that not only can block and kind of be in the short routes, but can seriously run up the seam and make big plays. And that's exactly what he used him for in overtime to win that game. But looking at the schedules, I mean, you got the Commanders, they got the Titans, the Saints, the Falcons, the Cowboys, and the Eagles. I mean, they could go 4-1. They could go 4-1. They might slip one of those games. They do have their bye week still outstanding as well, so that could help with a push for either the playoffs or just kind of getting into big games with the Falcons or the Eagles. And then on the Vikings side, they have the Cardinals, Falcons, Bears, Seahawks, Vikings, and Lions. That's a pretty difficult schedule outside of
the Bears.
Maybe the Falcons and the Bears. But the Bears just played them well, right? So you got to assume that the Bears are probably going to come out and give them another run for their money. But I just think that looking at the both of these teams overall, I know Darnold is Darnold. He's not a playoff guy. He's never really brought anybody to a major game, never won a major game, to be honest. But neither has Jaden Daniels, and he is a rookie quarterback. And I do think that this Vikings defense is more – I just think the Vikings are overall a better team than the Commanders, just at both positional talent-wise. You look on the defensive side of the ball, it's very difficult to run the ball against Minnesota. The Commanders have had decent defensive moments, but they just can't really keep it all together, even with Dan Quinn at the helm down there. So I think I have a little bit more faith in the Vikings. I know, Sean, you might disagree, but I just think they're already at 9-2. They're probably going to make the playoffs here. I know we're talking about who do you believe in more. I don't think either one of these teams is making an NFC championship run, but Sam Darnold has serious weaponry that every single team has to respect. And if you have 3 guys plus a solid running back, and you can only truly shut down one of those guys and maybe the running back, you're talking about 2 other viable, well above average players at their respective positions that you still have to respect. So I just think, because outside the Commanders, running back room's injured.
Yep.
Zach Ertz is 35. I mean, he's still a decent tight end, but he's not what he used to be. And you got Terry McLaurin. I mean, that's great, So I just don't see the Commanders putting it together for the rest of the season. So I'm going to go with the Vikings if I'm a betting man.
Yeah, ding, ding, ding. You nailed it. It's the RB room of the Commanders. Because when they were healthy, they were actually quite impressive. Like, you got the big bruiser and you got the big veteran catcher. Like, they had the third down back and the bruiser in the red zone, and it was working extremely well, especially with Daniels being a threat as a runner. And now his entire RB room is completely injured. Yep. And Robinson, he's potentially out next game again. Obviously, Eckler's out the concussion. We don't know how the situation is with this rushing room right now, this rushing attack. So they're going to force Daniels to become the runner more and make him more prone to injuries from a guy that had a rib injury that he was playing through. And obviously, that slowed his production down from a statistical standpoint. So losing his 2 running backs, they're down to Nick McNichols, I don't even know what the running back room is for this guy right now. And as you mentioned, Scary Terry, he's been balling, and obviously he had that big 80-yard touchdown. He's that alpha number 1 receiver. He's really having a coming out season, especially with the real quarterback this season. Especially with the rushing room, man. I'm just there's only so much injuries, and obviously there were not many expectations this year, and they were playing out of their minds in the beginning of the year. He had some crazy games that went their way, some miracles, as you remember. So miracles do happen, but you know what they say, regression to the mean right now, and they're getting hit really, really hard right now because they have lost 3 straight games. So pretty much this Commanders team right now is pretty much regressing back to where we thought they were going to be. This is a middle. I thought they were going to be below average, so they already exceeded my expectations. Yeah. But for me personally, I think they're a more of a below 500 level type of team. So for me, they aim. I got them missing the playoffs. I got them missing the playoffs.
Really?
Yeah, I got them missing.
You think the NFC West is going to pull together?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I got them missing the playoffs. Like, obviously, Eagles are the class of the NFC East. The Commanders and the rest of that division is pretty sorry, but I don't think the Commanders are that much better than those teams too, even though the quarterback is something special and pretty much revitalized this franchise. But for me, like the Vikings one of those teams, it just reminds me of the team with Kirk Cousins. Like, it's a nice team. Coaching is elite. The skilled positions around him, I think it's really what makes the situation kind of like a similar little Brock Purdy 49ers situation where you got the elite coach and the Shanahan tree, and you got all these from tight ends to receivers to running backs, a dual threat running back, and Aaron Jones, and Addison is the number 2. We had a stud rookie season. He's coming back after being spent or missing a couple games at the beginning of the year. So pretty much that offense, I think, is a legitimate, and their defense ain't that half bad either. So I feel like on both sides of the football field, this is like, I don't know if they're 9-2 good, because I see that I'm like, dang, the Vikings are 9-2, but like they took advantage of the win. They're on a 4-game winning streak right now. Their point differential is really solid. So they're beating teams by a decent point margin right now. And McConnell right now is just, I think, one of the elite coaches in the league. And when his players are healthy, because relatively the team is pretty healthy right now.
Yep.
Finally. Exactly. Got Hawkinson back. Who's their third option right now. Hawkinson is a third option, is great. So like, if you look at their skilled position players, like Sam Darnold has a lot of options to throw to, and everybody knows about the greatness of Justin Jeff. But if they double team him, he got other weapons. Where, as he said, like if they're going to cover me, at least get his other teammates open. So he could be played as a diversion. So I feel like the head coach, I believe in his coaching ability to maximize his other skilled positions. Even though Sam Darnold is a definition of a mid quarterback, but 9-2 is just. That is really impressive. So
it is.
Yeah, shout out to the Vikings. So I definitely got them easily making the playoffs. So I got them in and moving on, obviously a lot farther than the Commanders. So I got them missing the playoffs right now.
Wow.
I think with the Commanders, it's going to be the next 3 weeks because I think they have a bye in between, like I think week 14.
Yep.
Got to beat the Titans, and you got to go to New Orleans and win that. Because after that, you have Philadelphia, tough game. You got Atlanta. I mean, whatever. Heck, 1 minute they're hot, next minute they're not. And then you finish with Dallas, who just beat you on your home field, who you should have beat, but you still lost to them. And maybe that might be a gimme because at the end of the season, who cares? They might be playing Trey Lance, so you might get that dub. But I'm looking at you have to beat Tennessee, who has a really good defense, and you got to get New Orleans at New Orleans. That's probably the biggest game, the New Orleans game.
Yeah.
I think we kind of have seen with Jaden Daniels, he has had moments like I think people should referencing, like it's been, him kind of declining a little bit, but it's just probably more so of a rookie wall. But I do think that how he ended that game was really encouraging.
Yes.
He made a gutsy throw on the sideline to his best player, and to me, that shows like just the potential that he has. So if they can get those 2 weeks, I think they can get into the playoffs, but that's going to be tough. I think, like I said, I think the New Orleans game is going to be really tough for them because I just feel like going down there, they're not the best team, New Orleans, but you just know they're going defensively, they're going to be there. So I think if they can, I think they can win those 2 games, and if they do, I think they can get to the playoffs. Because quiet is kept, I don't really know what to think about the 49ers and Rams. Like I was high on the Rams last week, but it's like the 49ers, Brock Purdy getting hurt. I know he'll be back, but I just don't think they got it this year. Now they could make a run, but I don't know. And then with the Rams, wasn't really inspired by them much last week. So I think there's a chance, there's an opportunity for them to make that spot. Vikings, I'm not a big believer in Sam Darnold. I think their record's really good, but I think it's more so to your point, Zoo, like he's kind of Kirk Cousins-y, but I almost still think Kirk Cousins was a little bit more of a higher level player consistently. Like he played at a higher level, more consistent than Sam. I think Sam has been the benefit of this coach. I also think the defense is really good with Brian Flores. So he feels like a quarterback that just goes out there, and if he doesn't really make a lot of mistakes, they can win. And I don't think that's going to be able to get it done in the playoffs. Like I could easily see them being a one team and out. Now they do have 2 explosive receivers who, if Kirk Cousins had these guys, which he did have these guys, like I would be a little bit more confident because I would be more confident that Kirk would be able to get those guys the balls in better spots to make plays after they catch it. and that would thus lead to more explosive plays. So with Sam, I think if his style is still in that safe mode, I don't know how much, because prime example, like if you watch Justin Jefferson last week, like what he had like 2 or 3 catches last week, and it was just kind of like now you can't. Yeah, it's kind of hard to be like, well, that's all Sam's fault, but I mean, part of that had to do with Sam. So if Sam is going to be the safe quarterback, then I'm not going to be fully in like all the way trusting of, oh, he's just going to be able to get the ball to Hawkinson and be able to get the ball to Addison, be able to get the ball to Jefferson. Like, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. So if I had to trend away, it would be maybe Washington, just because I believe in Jaden a lot. Like, I was kind of a little nerve-wracked watching the game at the beginning against Dallas because it just felt like the classic. Everybody's like, okay, this is your. I hate when the narrative starts before the game. Is like, okay, this is our get right game because Dallas is kind of like downtrodden. It's like you can't say that because they're your division rival. Like that just doesn't happen. Your division rival, regardless of the records, is always going to play you tough. Look at Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Like it's never going to be as easy as you think. So I kind of hated that narrative, and I feel like Washington fed into it, and that's why they started off the way they did. Now, like I said, Jaden played well enough towards the end to win the game, but just seeing how he finished that game, it's exciting to see that he has that in him. Kind of maybe a little similar to how CJ was doing his first year. So if I had to pick one, I definitely would pick Washington, but they got to get these next 2 because I think the Tennessee game is going to be a dogfight. Like I think that spread, when I was just going through and looking at games, I think that's like 5.5. I don't know. Tennessee's quarterback situation is weird because Will Levis had a good game last week, but I wouldn't trust that. But that defense is going to come into play, and they're going to have probably something set up for Jaden to where he's not going to be as effective running around. So we'll see. But if I had to pick one, I would pick the quarterback that I'm a little bit more confident in to like at least like, would it shock me if they're in a divisional round or whatever? No, but I don't think, like to your point, they're not going to NFC Championship. Like that's the NFC is kind of shaped up to what we
very top heavy.
Yeah, I think we have 2, maybe 3 teams that we're very confident in. So, yeah, I'm leaning Washington on that one. So, real quick, speaking of the top 2, whose offense do you trust in the playoffs more, the Lions or Eagles?
That's a tough question.
It is
because they're very similar. I would say that like they're at the skill position side of the ball, like elite talent inside out, like rushing game. Passing game. Wow. Which team do I trust more?
Here's my thing. We got to see. Well, and I know it's still early, right? You're talking about right now, or are you talking about for the playoffs? Because for the playoffs, I think both Demont and Devontae Smith are both going to be healthy, hopefully by that point. Because right now they're both like out, questionable, whatever. Because I do think that's huge. You just talked about trusting quarterbacks. Do you trust Jared Goff or do you trust Jalen Hurts?
Exactly, because that's not a slam dunk either way. I don't think.
I trust Jalen Hurts over Jared Goff. I've always been the guy that Jared Goff is the product of a system that is the best situation a quarterback can be in an NFL. Yes. I truly believe that.
He's Brock Purdy on steroids.
Like his situation is
it
like that offensive line is like the greatest offensive line in football. Yes, right now. It's not even close. Like,
and the Eagles is second.
Yeah, Eagles is up there too. So like both the situations, like Jared Goff, like I feel like Jared Goff in certain situations when things aren't going, like Jared Goff is a great front runner. Like when he's up easy all day to throw, he can really he could beat a team by 30, 40 points because you got all these guys to get the ball. But for me, I'm going to lean quarterback with Jalen Hurts. I still like Jalen Hurts intangibles more than Jared Goff and his physicality in the playoffs. I like that. But if you look at coaching, I think the Detroit Lions have better coaching with the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Like Sirianni, I don't trust him as much as
I like Kellen Moore though. I'm biased with Kellen Moore.
Yeah, you like Kellen Moore.
I think that's why they're good. It's because Sirianni's just like running around acting crazy. But I think in the meeting room, Kellen Moore's talking. I think he's the one actually is the brain trust. I think Sirianni kind of is falling back.
Well,
he just is acting like a nutcase.
I think you gave Sirianni credit too, Sean. Like a couple weeks ago, you were like, at least he was able to kind of set his ego aside in a very ego-driven sports city. And just kind of say, all right, Kellen, you do the offense. I'll just kind of be the face, the guy that challenges, kind of runs the clock and all that stuff. But to your point, Zoo, real quick, you want to know? There was one play and it was in the Colts game where the Lions are easily winning, right? When he gets any sort of pressure, and you talked about how great the offensive line is, I would love to see the Lions offense go against Jalen Carter. I would love to see that because
monster,
if Jared Goff gets any,
isn't that the guy the Bears passed up on?
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Well, they traded back.
Yeah. I remember because I remember one guy was like a beast in college and he had some off the field issues. But I'm like, yeah, get the guy.
And then
because he was racing cars. Yeah.
To be fair, at least they didn't draft like a positional. They did draft a tackle, and he's been playing well. But yes, it's still Jalen Carter, and they do need a nose tackle.
Yeah.
But besides the point, Jared Goff just falls over. He does the Tom Brady over age 37, 38, man. And that's something where an Eagles defense that likes to give pressure and has extremely good coverage, which means that they won't get open as fast. Jared Goff might have a hard time staying upright, man. Yeah, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I'm not a Jared Goff guy. I'm just not a Jared Goff guy. So I love the rest of the team. I love the rest of the team, but not him.
I made that comparison because it really was. It's really a question about the quarterbacks because like they literally mirror each other in every aspect. The only difference is the Eagles don't have a number 2 back. But like,
Saquon
offensively, it's like
he's both and Jameer Gibbs for that team.
Yeah, but like speaking of like Sirianni, you guys have probably heard this stat, but like this is a minimum of 50 games, like winning percentage. So he's coaching. You got to at least coach in 50 games. John Madden is at 0.7759, Vince Lombardi at 0.738, George Allen, who I don't really know, is 0.712, and Sirianni's 0.694. You know what is crazy to me about that is
Mike Brown. He's Mike Brown, man.
Okay,
it feels
I
like
used to say that, but I think Mike Brown is a good coach now.
Okay,
no, he's a good coach.
He used to be old Mike Brown. He elevated after the
old Mike Brown. Sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sacramento definitely is. Mike Brown has a chance to, or not had a chance, but he's now proving that he's a great coach. But yes. I just thought that was crazy. I did not know his winning percentage was that high. So it's like, I think he had the whatever year with Steichen, and one thing I guess you can give him credit for is he's hired great coaches around.
That's
him.
important.
Sure, and important. I think allowed him to act. Now he just is crazy within himself, but I think the reason why he does that because I do think he trusts the guys he hired, and those guys are doing the legwork in terms of being the masterminds and doing whatever. Because I really do think he's letting Kellen Moore and whoever the defensive coordinator is do what he's supposed to do, and he's being like how you would want most head coaches to be as a CEO, and then you call good timeouts and you motivate the team, and I think his personality is able to do that. So that's where I will give him credit. But two things can be true. He's good at hiring coaches and good at letting them do what they do, but he's also a knucklehead. So it's kind of like people kind of see the knucklehead. They're just like, it's the decorum. Because it's like when elite head coaches don't act like that. Like for him to be in that company, what coach has that type of personality? Most of them are very stoic. Like they don't do that.
He's just very childish. He's very childish and emotional. Yeah. And I don't want that in my head coach. I want a mature guy at the head coach position.
And you know what he did? He hired Kellen Moore, right?
Yeah.
Quality. He had to deal with Jerry Jones, okay, which meant that he could not act out of line. So that's how he is. But the quiet best hiring, I don't know if you want to say in the league, but the Eagles bringing in Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator, people will forget he was the guy that built that Bears defense in 2018 that was easily top of the class. He was the one that helped build the Broncos defense that's doing well right now.
Broncos,
that was his thing, right? He was the head coach, which didn't work out. He's better as a D coordinator. But, man, he has gotten this Eagles, especially on the secondary, he has got them locked in, and they have just been shutting down teams as of recently. So, it's a great point, Sean. He's willing to hire the right people to complement him.
That's who I love that about coaches. Like I love, especially when they become head coaches. That's why I'm always sometimes worried with offensive coordinators when they become head coaches. Are you willing to let the guy that is going to be in the position you was just in do their job? Because sometimes offensive coordinators get like, okay, like I'm the head coach, but now I want to call the plays too. It's like, man, go. There's a guy out there that's good enough to probably do what you want him to do, and you can. And like you say, you're going to be in a meeting too. Like just go hire a guy and you deal with more of the big time stuff. So shout out Nick Sirianni and those Eagles because they're rolling. But speaking of teams that are kind of trending maybe down or up, it depends on how you look at it. The Dolphins and the Bucs. Now the Bucs kind of had some, I don't know, I think it was against the Ravens. They had some tough injuries with the receivers. It kind of seemed like they were finished or whatever with the Falcons kind of jumping in front of them. But lo and behold, the Bucs are kind of trending in the right direction. People are getting healthy. And with the Dolphins, man, Tua, since the concussion, has been playing like
he's been balling.
MVP light type player, type of a quarterback. So out of those two Florida teams, who do you think, I guess you would say, has a better chance to make the playoffs? And Zoo, who you rolling with, the Dolphins or the Buccaneers?
Man, I'm riding with Tua, man. Tua, baby. This dude is back. He is absolute back. And this is the Dolphins offense I envision. Like, I envision this Dolphins offense to be explosive, quick decision-making. He's the only thing I'm not really expecting is he's actually spreading the ball around. Like, he's spreading the ball. Yeah, I know. Like, Tyreek Hill, he's still sucking it up. But, like, Jonnu Smith is balling. Like, that's a crazy thing to say. But Jonnu Smith is a primary target in this offensive attack. Every time I watch him, he's kind of good. He got a little yak after him. He's not just catching the ball. He catches and runs a little. Jalen Waddle has been an absolute ghost this year. But Tua coming back, like, he is showing true, as Sean said, MVP-like impact because you see it's just not the same team. It goes from unwatchable to watchable. It's like that very few players have making an impact. I don't know if it's McDaniel's offense is hard to learn, or it's like a hard scheme to learn, or I think it requires really fast like decision making in the brain. Like it's a little up there. Like even the little passes, the dink and dunks, the Devon A-chain, and the quick throws when you get the ball. So a lot of quick decision making that obviously backup QBs are not getting it done and weren't even close. Like that team could barely score 10 points without Tua leading the charge. So ever since he's come back, he's been absolutely rolling. And like, if you look at his touchdown interceptions, his only bad game was the game where he got concussed. Yeah, like that game, like that was just
Bill's got under his skin.
He had a really bad game, and they got concussed. He missed the game. He threw for 1 touchdown, but 3 interceptions. But outside of that game, he's only thrown for 1 interception. 1 interception out of that Bills game where he got concussed. So Tua is playing at a really good level for a guy that people are calling for him to retire for his career, for his health purposes. But right now, he is playing football at a really high level and made the Dolphins come back. Like, they legitimately have a chance to make the playoffs. And I wouldn't doubt it. Because if you're looking the way they're playing, it's just not the same team from what they've done. And their schedule, it's not that scary. It's not that –
what? It's like half and half.
Yeah,
Packers, Texans, Niners, and then they get the Jets twice and the Browns.
Yeah, the Jets twice is a beautiful thing.
Browns is a bit of a trap game.
Yeah, Browns, James got a little something, but I like the schedule. I feel like this offense.
Where is that game?
That's a good question.
That Browns game. If it's at the Browns, then I'm with you because I could see that being a little Jameis spotlight game. A little spotlight. And if it's at night or something, yes.
It's at Cleveland in December 29th, Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. That's a loss.
You think Jameis?
yeah. Jameis will go. He'll go ham.
Dude, the Lord's gonna bring him victory, man. That's all
man. If he gives a war cry speech like last time, man, like he might. But I like that schedule because right now the Texans, they're not playing that well. They're not the Texans team that a lot of people expected that might make it to the Super Bowl in the beginning of the year. The 49ers are not the same team with all the injuries now with Purdy injured. So
he's fine now.
Yeah. But if you see these teams on paper, like I think I like Green Bay, obviously with Jordan Love back, and that offense is doing really well. But I think that's like the only threatening team with Jordan Love's offense over there. So for me, I'm like, this Dolphins team making the play. This will be a hell of a story. From a quarterback that went missing and comes back and leads them to the playoff, and I could easily see him to lead them to a wild card because I'm looking at the schedule. It's not a scary schedule. It's not a scary schedule, and just Tua, stop running because there's a couple of possessions in some of these games. He starts to do a little running thing. No, stay in the pocket, throw it to your playmakers, let them get it done. And this is with Tyreek Hill not being like I know he had that little wrist injury that he's playing through, so he's not 100% right now. So use your other weapons. Use Devon A-chain. Use Jonnu Smith to get it done because those two have been his 2 favorite targets this year, which is a weird thing to say. It's a weird thing to say, but for me, I'm riding with the Dolphins. Even though Baker Mayfield this year, he's having a career season, especially losing Chris Godwin. Like that was a massive loss. But when Chris Godwin was out, Baker Mayfield still played extremely well.
Yep.
No Godwin, no Mike Evans. He was still putting up elite numbers, and he was running the football a lot more this year. He's in Rashad White and Bucky Irving as his weapons, and Cade Otton throwing a couple of touchdowns. Yeah, so Baker Mayfield.
He's good.
Baker Mayfield has been balling this year. Now it's with Mike Evans coming back and his alpha number one receiver, his favorite target. I do see some upside on that team too, especially with the division being straight trash. So they might be able to win the division and get in. But for me, I'm believing back in this Dolphins team again, guys. I was a real believer in the beginning of the year, and they're that team right now. They got to prove against some real playoff teams, especially against the Green Bay Packers.
I was gonna say this is the week.
We get to see them against a real team.
Man, they just beat the Patriots, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like, no offense, Patriots fans, you guys had your moment, all right, but it ain't right now, and it hasn't been for a couple of years. I'll go with the Bucs. I have to go with the Bucs. And your last point that you made, Zoo, they're only a game back of first place against a team that is on a 2-game losing streak, and on a 2-game losing streak that had to go into a bye with that 2-game losing streak. I think that messes with them mentally. Drake London has just been an absolute roller coaster. Bijan has been pretty consistent throughout the year. Kyle Pitts, doo-doo, absolute trash. Darnell Mooney, one of the better comeback or risers of the year for sure, but he's also got some questionable tags against him. And then looking at this Bucs team, man, Bucky Irving. I think he had a little bit of a statement game this past week. I know it was the Giants, and you could say the same thing that we were just talking about with the Dolphins and the Patriots. But Bucky Irving in the passing game showed that he can do as well, if not better, than Rachaad White. And that's literally the only reason Rachaad White was still getting playing time was because of his receiving ability. But Bucky Irving was like, oh, anything you can do, I can do better.
Yep.
And it sure did work. And I think it also helped with the threat of Mike Evans down the field. Now you have to respect Cade Otton. Yes, they don't have Godwin. He's out for the year, gruesome injury. But, that defense is always there. They got Vita Vea in the middle. It's really hard to run against this team. We saw Tyrone Tracy get a fumble forced on him in that game. For me, Zoo, it's more of the situation of the division. I think they have a better lock-in chance of making the playoffs compared to the Dolphins. Because if you look at who the Dolphins are going against, they're going to be competing for the 3 wild card spots with either the Ravens or Steelers, whoever doesn't win that division, the Broncos and the Chargers. Now, I'm not saying the Broncos are great, but they have a 1.5 or 2-game lead on the Dolphins. If they slip any one of those, like we were just talking about the Browns game for the Dolphins, if the Dolphins lose that game, that is crucial because the Broncos, they played the Chiefs extremely well. That is their last game of the season. They play the Bengals, in Week 17, who at that point, they might be shutting down a couple people if they have no chance at playoffs.
Yep.
They play the Chargers. We got to see what Dobbins is doing because, and I'll make that point about the Chargers really quickly. If Dobbins is out, I am a bit out on their playoff.
Yep. That is a massive loss.
Huge loss. Now, to our point, we still don't know yet. As of filming, there has been no update on J.K. Dobbins. If it's a 2-week injury, I think they're able to hold it together long enough to make the playoffs because Herbert has been balling the past handful of weeks outside of last night. But then, Broncos get to play the Browns. Bit of a trap game, very defensive, and the Colts. So it's not like they have a very difficult schedule, which if you think about it, even if they go 3-2 to end the season and then 10-7, that means that the Dolphins have to go 5-1 to end the year.
Yeah.
5-1 to end the year. And I just see them taking 2 losses in that schedule, whether it's against the good or decent teams or a fluke loss. So I'm going to go with the Bucs here just on a probability sense. But I do have to give credit where credit's due. Shout out to him, man. He just doesn't care what the media says about him. To your point, they were calling for him to retire. He was never even considering retirement. To be honest here, he had all that money on the table. He knew he still had potential, and he has such a solid team. I would actually compare them, Zoo, a little bit to the Vikings offense right now. Very similar on a positional player. They got the solid running back. A-Chain's obviously more versatile. But I think that the Vikings make up for that on the receiving side. And then they both have tight ends that are doing well right now. So it's going to come down to the quarterback play. Can he stay healthy? Is he not making poor running decisions, especially in competitive games? Because he's going to have some competitive games coming up in this stretch. So I'm going Bucs.
You're going Buccaneers.
This is tough because the thing Miami really got to go 5-1. And I could totally see them losing at Green Bay.
That's a tough one.
And I can kind of see like Because I don't know what San Fran's going to be. Like, if San Fran, that's the wild card. Like, if San Fran really is just kind of going to be okay this year and not turn it up, because it's getting late in the season for them to be like, okay, they're about to turn it up. It's like, well, you kind of need to start that
just
now.
like the Dolphins. Yeah.
Like, if you ask me this next week and I got to see, I don't know, San Fran had their backup quarterback, but like if Brock Purdy comes back and they still go whatever, and they're now 5-7, then I would be a little bit more confident. I still would maybe trend towards Miami just because of how Tua's playing. And this is like you said, I don't know if Zoo or people, which one of you guys said it, but like Waddle's not even playing well. So it's like if Waddle somehow gets out of his funk and turns up, now you got two, like how we envision it, like two explosive receivers and explosive running back, and now you just throw on top of it Jonnu Smith. You wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs if all three of those guys are going, or four of those guys are
cold weather.
Like apex. Yeah, of course. If it's cold weather, then you're cooked, which more than likely is going to be because they're not going to probably have home field advantage. So, and if it's the Bills, you might as well just chop that up to a loss. But
that'd be the Bills' favorite matchup.
You know, Kansas City, Bills. I mean, I don't know who else in the playoff picture do you think?
Pittsburgh or Baltimore.
They maybe had a chance against those teams, or
they'd have to. What they'd have to do is they'd have to somehow get the top wild card spot and face the Texans.
Yeah,
because that's probably going to be
their bet, because it's a fast track either way on both.
And you play sides, indoors.
Yeah, but I think I'm trending a little bit more towards the Dolphins because with the Bucs is like Mike Evans came back, yes, and their division is easier. But I will say this about that division, like. They lost to Atlanta twice, I think, already, right? And Carolina, I think they played them twice going out. That's going to be a tough out. Like, I know Kansas City plays down to their position, but Bryce didn't look bad. Like, and Bryce is starting to slowly trend towards like the guy he could be as a number one pick. Like, he's not going to, I don't think, ever live up to number one pick ability, but he looked good against Kansas City. Like, he was throwing some dimes. And it's like, I think against the Bucs, like that could give them somewhat of an issue, especially with the fast turnaround. Like the Bucs squeak out the first game, but then they got to play them in another 2 weeks. Like they could maybe sneak one of them, and if they sneak one of them, it's over.
Look at the Panthers twice, Raiders, Cowboys, Saints.
I'm out on the Raiders. Like I can't defend the Raiders.
Yeah. And the Saints are the Saints. That's probably gonna be a grinded out game. Cowboys, I think the Bucs just throw the ball.
Probably maul them, yeah, because the Cowboys ain't going to be. They play their division rivals well, but not like anybody.
Yeah, their genuine hardest game is the Chargers, and that could be without Dobbins. And I just see but if you compare it to the Falcons, real quick, Falcons play the Chargers, the Vikings, the Commanders, the Panthers, the Giants, and the Raiders. So they have two more difficult games plus the Chargers, like they have to. So that's what it came down to for me. But
the Chargers, though, I agree. It is a massive loss to lose JK because how he played within that offense this year. But I'm in a wait and see because of Harbaugh. Like he kind of, I know Michigan is a college level team, but like Michigan, how they did their running game, they always had multiple backs. So I'm wondering, I know we know what Gus Edwards is, but like the Vidal guy we were talking about before the pod, like maybe he's a hidden gem and Harbaugh could scheme up a plan where he's at least serviceable. Because I know Harbaugh DNA is running the ball. So I feel like the backs that he's going to have on his roster, he's going to have a star back, but he's always going to have somebody that could, similar to how the 49ers did with like, everybody was like, okay, Jordan Mason, what the hell? Like, he's not going to be able to fill McCaffrey's shoes. And he didn't, but he was serviceable as hell. So, like, I think they could get a running game that's serviceable to where it'll help Herbert still be able to throw. So I still think that's a tough game. But I just like how Miami is playing just because I think their potential is a little bit higher with Waddle kind of. And I don't know if Waddle's injured or if he just doesn't have it this year. But if he can somehow get out of his funk, I like that.
Big game last week.
Yeah. If he can get out of that, then I'm really excited. Because now, like you said, Tua, stay in the pocket. Like you said, we were talking about Jared Goff just falling on whatever. Just fall. Like, who cares? Just eat it because you got so much explosion on the offense that you'll be able to gain it back. Unless it's like third down, then you got to punt it. But it's like, yeah, you ain't got to fight, man. Just get down, do whatever. And if he's doing that and he's healthy, I like them. Because, well, the cold weather is a factor. Like I said, they get that Texans game, man. And who knows? That's the thing about the playoffs. If they get the Texans and beat the Texans, like, there could be an upset. And then now, they're playing at a venue where it's not whatever. But hopefully at that – listen, y'all know how I feel about Kansas City, man. I know it's sleepwalking.
Don't say it.
I won't say it, but They're sleepwalking like a
No,
month.
they don't cover spread. They don't cover.
They hate covering spreads. They absolutely hate it, and it's just like I would. That's why I never bet the Chiefs because it's just like I don't know what to get. I don't know what I'm
just bet them to not cover or bet the other team to cover, man. Every time. That's not a bad bet.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah. So we'll see. Like I said, I do love that those two teams are trending in the right direction because I think they had a little bit more higher hopes and it kind of got dashed with injuries and stuff. But now they're back on the right track. So we'll see about those two teams. But
there is no nobility in poverty. I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich every fucking time.
Right now, we're about to get into our best bets of the week. I want to give a quick recap before you guys get into it. Like, man, Braylon Allen starting, that was the death knell in my whole entire parlay. Like, I almost was like, let me see if I can go in there and change the notes. But like at that point, I was just like, what is the point? Parlays are tough, like I keep saying, but I will say that this week I felt a little bit better. And I will, if you're using a little bit of common sense and you really bet for real, you probably already knew Braylon Allen was maybe trending towards starting. So you probably didn't take my advice on that. So if you're a real bettor, you saved your money. So I will say that. But Peebush, what do you got lined up this week?
Man, this was a brutal past week for DFS. I mean, I shouldn't say that. The Jared Goff he just did absolutely nothing. But Jahmyr Gibbs absolutely popped. Huge play right there. I mean, my main five that I played were Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Mahomes, and then Geno and Goff just did nothing. So those ones kind of fluttered out, unfortunately. So 3 decent ones. Good compliments this week, though, were, like I said, Gibbs, JSN really come on the last handful of weeks for the Seahawks. DJ Moore was also very solid. It was a break-even week for me. But yeah, looking at this week, man, I'm not going to include Thursday's games because I know it's a 3-game slate. It's kind of hard to play DFS. I usually do it because you've got to feel something during those games, while you're eating all your food. I do like Caleb Williams lineups. If you are going to do a Thursday, I think building something around there. They're going to be down against the Lions. They're going to have to throw the ball, and the Lions secondary is so. So just a quick caveat there for Thanksgiving games. But looking at the Sunday slate, man, there's some very good games and there's some very tough games to predict. I think the Philly-Baltimore game, people are going to be very excited to play.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be very difficult to read on, is Zay Flowers going to play well against Darius Slay? Can A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both eat? Or is Saquon going to have another monster game against a good rush defense? So maybe people will be off of him, even though he'll be close to $9,000 to play Saquon Barkley, up in there with the CMCs of last year, as Zhu texted me during the game, just having that CMC big impact. So I'm kind of staying away from the extremely expensive running backs this week. I like Bucky Irving against the Carolina Panthers. I just think the game script will be pointing that way. He's been now used more in the passing game, like I mentioned earlier. I like that play. Very cheap. Aaron Jones against the Cardinals. I really like him as well. It was good to see him get back in the end zone, Zoo. I'm sure you were happy to see that. I just think that that game is going to be interesting. And we saw Kenneth Walker do a little bit of damage for Seattle against the Cardinals this past week. A couple other guys I like. Mixon, very expensive against the Jaguars. Chuba against the Bucs. Bryce Young has been playing better. You might actually have to respect the passing game a little bit so Chuba can eat. But speaking of which, my quarterback stack of the week, Baker Mayfield against the Panthers, man. Let him feast. I'm actually going to stay away from Mike Evans.
Oh, wow.
Bust guy.
K-Dot?
Some exposure to him a little bit, but I'm going to do a K-Dot and stack and kind of go with the game script. Bucky Irving, Baker Mayfield, safe throws to K-Dot, and I like that a lot. On the wide receiver end, this is a juicy matchup. Nico Collins against the Jaguars. That could be real nice, but very expensive. So I'm actually going to stay away from him. Sean, you made a point about Saints always showing up defensively, but I like Cooper or Puka this week. I think I'm going to lean Cooper just because I think Puka's been getting a lot of work, but Kupp for some reason gets more red zone looks than Puka does, and just he's had more experience with Stafford, but they're both perfectly fine and they're only about 100 or 200 off from each other. And then I'm going to bring it back with Brian Thomas Jr. And a caveat with Trevor Lawrence playing, which supposedly he is trending in the right direction. Against Houston, they're going to be playing down, and he had a big game against them earlier in the year. And then I already mentioned Otten at the tight end position. Last wide receiver, T. Higgins against the Steelers. I know they're a good defense, but Joey Porter Jr. is going to be draping Jamar Chase. You better believe it. And this is a must-win game. Sean, I think you said this last week when we knew they were going on their bye. They had to come back, and they have to win out. If they want any chance, they have to win out. I think they're going to come out flying against a divisional opponent. And I just think they're going to have to throw the ball because we know how difficult it is to run against the Steelers. So I like T. Higgins staying a bit more away from Jamar Chase, save a couple extra bucks, but still play a guy that can give you 30 if he has a big game.
Interesting. Yeah, the Buccaneers. I do like the Buccaneers. Just go riding all the bugs. Bucket Irvin, this rookie.
Yep.
Very productive. Like he took Rashad White's job.
He did.
Because I still remember week 1, I'm like, who's this Bucket Irvin guy? Getting decent amount of playtime for a rookie running back. Usually they get eased in, but he just got the snaps immediately and looked very productive. Looked like the better runner than Rashad White, so he took his job, and I guess he's the RB1 of the roster now. So I do like the Buccaneers, man. For me, last week, oh Jesus, J.K. Dobbins injury tanked the Chargers. Just tanked it. Absolutely tanked the Chargers, and that was the injury from. But based on play from Quentin Johnson. The playmaker and the play dropper, man, because that's what he does. Like he gets his opportunity. He's explosive. If he gets the ball in his hand and it stays in his hand, he can really get touchdowns. He's a very good deep ball. Like he got
Mike Williams.
He's like he's Mike Williams. He got that yak in him. So after that, Herbert's obviously playing extremely well. Like the QB coach combination. Obviously, you're playing against an elite QB coach and Lamar and the other Harbaugh. So that was a shootout game. But when you're playmakers don't make plays, you got the L and you losing JK. I love the Gus bus, but JK Dobbins got that. He got that explosiveness that they missed. He's that true explosive running back that a Harbaugh offense needs. So obviously they couldn't get it done, even though it got a little tight at the end. But it wasn't really in doubt at the end, even though it looks like a one possession touchdown game. But for this week, though, you mentioned it. It was a little tease. I'm betting against the Chiefs. 12.5, man. 12.5. Do you know why? This is the reason why. You see this game on Black Friday. You need Mahomes, Thanksgiving dinner, having a good old time with the family. Probably hang out with Travis Kelce and Mr. Swift. They're going to have a good old time for the game. And the Raiders, Andy Reid having a good dinner. The Raiders are in their minds right now. They're 10-1. They're just coasting through the season. Obviously, right now against the Panthers, that game was too close for comfort. As you guys mentioned, Chiefs don't cover spreads, man. And especially at 12.5 with an over/under of 42.5. They expect this to just be a low-scoring type game, pretty mediocre game. And you're giving 12.5. That's by 2 touchdowns. And if you look at every Chiefs game this year, they didn't beat a single team by 12.5 or more points. Every single game this year, they've won with a margin of victory of 10 points at max. So they don't really blow out teams. This ain't that team that blow out teams. And especially with the Raiders team.
Desmond Ridder.
The Raiders don't like the Chiefs. They don't play hard. Divisional matchup. It's a holiday game. The Chiefs obviously going to whoop them, but 12.5, man. Give me 12.
Well, Chiefs whooping this year, Zoo, is by a touchdown, man.
That's what it is. That's the thing. The Chiefs don't blow out teams.
Ever.
They haven't done it all year. I don't think they're going to do on the day after Thanksgiving. That's all I got to say. The day after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's going to be an ugly game. Just an ugly game.
20-17.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly.
A rock fight, as they would say. Exactly. A rock fight.
Exactly.
Yeah, rock
fight. 12.5.
That 12.5 is massive. I'm with you with the Chiefs. It's just they never cover, so you pretty much gonna steal money there. People should mention T. Higgins with the Cincinnati Bengals. I feel like they've had a lot of gotta have it in the last 2 to 3 weeks, and they just didn't have it. So I'm kind of I just kind of am looking at the Steelers. I always try to go the last 10 games or whatever. What's been the record? And I want to say they've won was it 15? They're 15-5, the Steelers versus the Bengals. Now I was going through a lot of those games at like 3-point, 6-point, but it's a division game. I love the Steelers defense. I do think if it didn't start just turning into a blizzard against the Browns, they probably would have beat them. And offensively, George Pickens is their number one, and they're starting to be played like a number one. I like their other options, like they're solid options. They're not like how it feels like Pittsburgh every year has like 2 or 3 receivers that are just like really elite. I think this year they got a really elite one in Pickens, and other guys are really solid. Freiermuth's a dude, but running game is solid. So I like their offense a little bit with Russell because it feels like he steadies them, and their defense is just always plays lights out. The Bengals, I know the spread on this one was like 2.5, but I kind of like Pittsburgh money line on this because I just don't think the Bengals got it this year. I do think the biggest part of this game is going to be who stops T. Higgins because he does have the talent to be a number one, and if you don't put at least a solid corner on him, he's going to go off. So that scares me a little bit, but Steelers are a good team. The balance, they know how to keep you. They don't really get blown out or get down a lot. So I kind of like the money line is 2.5 on that. But like I told guys for the pod, 10 with the Bears just seems insane. Like it's the only nerve-wracking part about it is why is it that high considering it's the Lions? And I know the Lions have blown out some teams this year, but it's like
teams,
they blow them out and they know how to do that. But I do think that the Bears have the talent to keep it close. And to me, I don't think it's a scenario with it being a division game that they're going to just – it's 21-0. Like, I just don't see that. Like, I think they're going to fight, and it's going to be within 10. Now – you could be really ballsy and just like I think people's was like Bears money line,
Bears
but
money line. Not
you could throw that money and make you a really nice payday. But I'm very confident, or at least feel good about the Bears keeping that within 10.5. Division games just don't normally end in blowouts. So those are the 2 games I'm looking at right now. The one I'm probably most confident in is that one, because like I said, with the Bengals, they are in a gotta have it, and they finally have it, and they do it against the Steelers. Maybe the Steelers have a, just a lackadaisical Sunday. But, Bears, like I said, they're due. They're due. They should have won the last 2 games, man.
Is it 10.5 or is it 10?
10.5. I saw on, I think I got mine from FanDuel, I think. Let me see.
If it's 10.5, that's huge because 10 points versus like.
Yeah, I got plus 10.5 on FanDuel.
A 10-point game, I could see that happening, and if it's at 10.5, I could see the Bears covering.
Yeah,
because I mean,
plus 10.5.
They've played Goff well in years past, and that's without as good of an offense as they have this year compared to years past, and they've always played him well, especially on the defensive side.
The money line on that is plus 385. Jeez, that's juicy.
And you got to remember, I mean, short week with Montgomery.
Thanksgiving too. Yeah, Thanksgiving. DJ Moore shows up, wants to get the turkey leg at the end of the game. Who knows, man?
Yeah, let's hope so.
He might want to play. He might play his ass off just to get that turkey leg. So I don't know. I still would trend more towards that spread because 10.5 is massive. It's massive. So those are the 2 games I'm looking at. The rest of them is just it was a lot of, like I said, the Chiefs one is a huge spread. They could not cover that. There was a lot of 3s, 2.5s, 1.5s, and I don't. I normally do 3, but I stay away from a lot of those games that are in that range. Like I think there was a 5.5 with like the Broncos and somebody. I don't know who they're playing. But I don't know. Broncos have been kind of weird because I think people are still trying to catch up to Bo Nix, like if he's good, which he's now showing he is good. So it's kind of like the lines are kind of adjusting, but he still could have a Bo Nix game, so who knows? But yeah, those are the 2 that I'm feeling for sure. So. This week always is kind of a little wacky because it's Thanksgiving week. So, like, say you got the Black Friday games, you got Thursday night games, and then you're gonna go to Sunday, whatever, Sunday night, Monday night, whatever.
It's a great week of football.
Yeah, it is great, elite week of football. And we're getting down to clearing up this playoff picture. So make sure you guys are tuning into our podcast to get the latest on what is going on playoff wise with the NFL. We still have the NBA going on, games going on every day. Every hour it feels like with the NBA. College basketball is in the thick of it right now. I got Kansas and Duke on in the background. But like I said, that's a March Madness sport. But it's still interesting to watch big time matchups. So with all that, make sure you tune into Tyson Talk on _ on Instagram, Contra Knows on YouTube, Spotify, Apple is where you can listen to us. And for me, Zoo, and P. Bush, we are.